Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2188. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm in Kingston, New York, a little bit out in the country with a very special guy by the name of Mike Guy. Did you get that? Double guy. Mike, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have any gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
I am ready to release the clutch.
So, Mike, before I give you a proper introduction, I'd love for you to share one little thing that most people don't know about Mike Guy.
Me?
Yeah, of course.
Well, that's good. I mean, I thought everybody knew everything about me. Let's see. I think, I have a weird, strange history in media. I was a crime reporter at the Boston Globe for a couple of years.
Wow.
I took time off from college and was a Metro desk reporter. But after that, the beginning of my magazine career, I was Hunter Thompson's assistant.
Really?
Yeah, I went to Rolling Stone, and they sort of throw the young meat at Hunter because that used to be like the trial by fire. If you could handle a couple of reporting trips and some closes and all the middle of the night phone calls from him, then you could handle anything. And I come from a long line of assistants. There are probably 5 of us who stick together, and we have sort of our trauma therapy group. But Hunter was actually a car guy in a sort of limited way. He loved driving. He really loved it was something about walking the tightrope and, living life on the limit. He had I think a 68 Volkswagen. He famously had a couple of Cadillac Eldorados. One that was, I think, starred in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And he used to drive them really competently under very dubious levels of intoxication.
Uh-oh.
And he was very proud of that. He was a great driver, and he drove like a lunatic. He lived up by Aspen, and he put studded tires on the Volkswagen and just drove that thing through every snowstorm imaginable, usually with a top down and a cigarette lit. But
what a character!
But he was a real character, and the end of his days were something you could predict by his lifestyle. But it was, I guess, a treat. It seemed at the time like hell, but in retrospect, I did learn a lot from that. That's sort of a strange little element of my biography that doesn't really sync up with being the editor-in-chief of Road and Track, but somehow it does. I mean,
we'll figure out how it works here in a minute. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, let me give you a proper introduction. Mike Guy is the editor-in-chief of Road and Track, part of the Hearst Auto portfolio. He was the founder and former editor-in-chief of The Drive. Prior to starting The Drive, Mike was the digital director of Maxim and an article editor at Details. Early in his career, he was an editor and feature writer for Rolling Stone, as he mentioned, and a wild guy named Hunter. Mike has written for publications including Playboy, GQ, and Vanity Fair, and his articles on motorsports were included in the Best American Sports Writing Anthology. We'll be back in just a moment, but first a word from our beloved sponsors here. They keep the fuel in the tanks, so keep the seatbelts on. We'll be right back.
Okay.
I've enjoyed the quality and variety of Lloyd's floor mats for decades now, and I'm super excited to report that Lloyd's Mat Store is now part of the Covercraft family of products. Car care that protects the things that move you. Lloyd's floor mats are the ultimate in quality and fit with carpet mats, all-weather mats, velour techs, Berber, classic loop carpet, and they're proudly made in the USA. They're designed and sewn with the highest of quality and offer custom fitment for almost any vehicle. There's a wide variety of styles, fabrics, and colors to choose from, and hundreds of licensed logos as well. Protect your vehicle's factory carpets from moisture, dirt, mud, snow, slush, anything that Mother Nature can throw your way. All of your options are quality made, easy to clean, they secure to the floor, and they look oh so good. Check out Lloyd's Mat Store for a wide variety of styles, colors, and options for your vehicle today. And I've got a special deal for you. If you use the code CARSYEAH, CARSYEAH at LloydsMatStore.com, you'll get $10 off. Just use the code CARSYEAH at LLOYDMATSSTORE.com, LloydsMatStore.com, Covercraft and Lloyd's Mats, protecting the things that move you. Autumn has arrived, the weather's changing, and that means your vehicles need extra protection against everything Mother Nature can drop. Covercraft offers you a multitude of layers of protection for your special rides. Are you putting your summer toys away, watercraft, RV, motorcycles, trailers, or even your patio furniture? Covercraft has a custom fit cover for whatever your need. Covercraft offers you 10 different car cover options. That's right, 10 for your special vehicle's protection, whether stored inside or out. All carefully crafted into the form and fit with the quality and attention to detail that's been their standard since 1965. And don't forget their custom fit seat covers, pet pad, Fido's going to get wet and muddy, I guarantee it, dash mats, sunscreens, and custom fit floor mats and trunk mats. Whatever the surface you want to protect, Covercraft has your solution. If you use the code YEAH21 at covercraft.com, you'll get 10% off your Covercraft order. That's right, 10% off. Simply use the code YEAH21 at checkout. Come on, Mother Nature, bring it on. Covercraft, protecting the things that move you. Covercraft offers you 10 different options. That's right, 10 for your special vehicle's protections. You can choose from Weather Shield HP, HD, Sunbrella, UltraTech, Reflect, Form Fit, Custom View Shield, and their newest 5-layer all-climate, 3-layer moderate climate, and 5-layer indoor options. All are custom tailored by Covercraft's talented craftspeople just for you. It's the form and fit with the quality and attention to detail that's been their standard since 1965. Surface protection is the best way to preserve the investment you've made in your vehicles. Covercraft protects cars, trucks, motorcycles, RVs, trailers, and watercraft too. I have a Covercraft cover for every one of my vehicles, and I have a deal for you. If you use the code YEAH21 at covercraft.com, you'll get 10% off your Covercraft order. That's right, 10% off. Just use the code YEAH21 at checkout. Covercraft, protecting the things that move you. Do you live where the climate is a great challenge? I do. Up here in the Pacific Northwest, it rains a lot during the winter and even into the spring. And that's why I love Covercraft's newest 5-layer all-climate cover. It was specially developed and engineered for anything that Mother Nature can throw your way. It's soft, it's breathable, and easy to store, and it pampers your paint plus your interior surfaces from maximum UV, rain, dust, and snow protection. Add their gust guards if you live in a windy area for extra protection to keep your cover secure. Your 5-layer all-climate cover is custom tailored with Covercraft's specific attention to detail, form, and fit. The quality and attention has been their standard since 1965. Covercraft protects cars, trucks, motorcycles, RVs, trailers, and your watercraft too. Every one of my vehicles is protected by a Covercraft cover, whether stored indoor or out. And I've got a deal for you. If you use the code YEAH21 at covercraft.com, they'll give you 10% off your Covercraft order. That's right, 10% off. Just use the code YEAH21 at checkout. Covercraft, protecting the things that move you. Covercraft's newest 3-layer all-climate cover is especially engineered for moderate weather conditions. Plus, it's treated with an extra UV-resistant formula. It's very soft, it's breathable, and it's easy to store while pampering your paint, providing maximum UV, rain, and dust protection. If you live where it's windy, well, simply add their gust guards for those windy conditions for extra protection. Your 3-layer all-climate cover is custom tailored with Covercraft's attention to detail, form, and fit with the quality and specifics that have been their standard since 1965. Covercraft protects cars, trucks, motorcycles, RVs, trailers, and your watercraft too. Every one of my vehicles is protected by a Covercraft cover, whether it's stored inside or out. And I've got a deal for you. If you use the code YEAH21 at covercraft.com, you'll get 10% off your Covercraft order. That's right, 10% off. Just use the code YEAH21 at checkout. Covercraft, protecting the things that move you. I was tired of my rates for my collector car insurance going up every year for no explainable reason. My carrier seemed to be turning into a media company versus an insurance company, and I realized that a portion of my policy premium was paying for all those so-called free media goodies. So I did my homework, I talked to knowledgeable collectors, shopped around, and discovered American Collectors Insurance. They've been serving the collector car hobby since 1976. You last that long by properly serving your customers' insurance need, not with a lot of fluff. ACI is ranked the #1 online collector car insurance provider according to Google, Trustpilot, Facebook, and they offer their real person guarantee live support. No never-ending phone loops when you need help. Plus, because you don't use your classic car as a daily driver, you could save up to 40% compared to regular auto insurance. American Collectors Insurance provides agreed value policies. So if you experience a total loss to your collector vehicle or it's stolen, you'll be paid the amount listed on your declaration page, less any deductibles, of course. No ifs, ands, or buts. Give them a call today and ask for your free quote at 866-ACI-YEAH. That's 866-224-9324. Tell them you're a friend of mine, Mark Greens at Cars Yeah. American Collectors Insurance. Classic car insurance designed by collectors for collectors. Fall is here, and you know what that means. Time to put a good coat of protection on your vehicle. I'm teamed up with AutoGeek, and they've been the leading source of auto detailing products, accessories, and expert knowledge for more than 20 years. What started back in 1997 as a small mail-order catalog company grew into a multi-website based e-commerce store, and that's what they are today. With a large online presence on its own website featuring close to 100 different brands, AutoGeek has grown to be the largest car care retailer in the country. AutoGeek's wholesale program serves accounts in over 30 countries, and its retail sector ships worldwide. If you want to protect your vehicle this fall, and you should, go to autogeek.net for the best product selection on the internet today and technical support. Autogeek.net is where I go for my detailing needs. That's autogeek.net. So, Mike, we are back. So we're going to dive a little deeper into your life there. And, you know, Road and Track is one of these magazines that's been around since, gosh, I was a little kid. My next door neighbor, who was an FBI agent, how cool is that, living next to an FBI agent, used to give me his old Road and Track magazine. So I've been reading this forever. But Road and Track has been through a major transition, as many publications have been kind of forced to. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that transition and your interpretations of it and the different things that Road and Track is today, including the Track Club and some other cool items you guys offer. So you've been through a lot. I mean, going back to your Rolling Stone days and everything, but this new evolution of magazines, I'd love to get your interpretation of it, how it ties into Road and Track.
Well, I think, you know, Road and Track is, as you said, it's been around for 76 years. It'll be 76 years with the next issue.
Wow.
It's seen it all. It's seen sort of the fattest possible years in publishing and some of the leanest. You could argue that we're in a really lean time right now, certainly for print publishing. After my experience, I launched, as you say, I was at Time, and I launched the Drive. I pitched it to the board of directors at Time Inc. because they had never had a car magazine. They felt that there was a good financial case to make for a car magazine. So I launched that, and as an all digital enterprise, and we built it from scratch. And I brought a great team in, and then Time got bought up by Meredith, and then Meredith decided that they didn't want any media properties that weren't oriented toward women specifically. And so they sold People and Sports Illustrated and Time magazine and Fortune and us. They said to me and Mike Spinelli, who is my business partner, the two of us ran it together. He's another car guy out there. And they said, you have 6 months to find a buyer. And otherwise we're going to shut you down. And we had probably 30 employees,
Wow.
25 employees. And so I had to literally go home and Google, how do I find a buyer for my magazine?
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
And, after a while, it occurred to me that there were several people who wanted to buy it. And the group that did was they're venture capitalists. They ended up buying Popular Science. I mean, the Drive was the first one, and they brought in a bunch of other properties that were all mostly digital. I think almost all digital. And they played around with different business models. And as it turns out, they're having a lot of trouble right now. They just laid off a bunch of people. I stayed there 6 months, and we got into I didn't think the ownership had very good ideas. And so I left.
Maybe that's coming to fruition now, huh?
Well, maybe. I don't know. I don't know any of the details of it. But I just, at that point, I was like, I'm never going to work in media again. This is just too difficult. The Drive was doing well, which is why they didn't shut us down. And instead, they sold us. But the environment for a media property is it's really hard to get like a reader that is loyal and that cares as much about who is doing the reporting and the publishing as the subject itself or the story itself. You know what I mean?
Because they're getting exactly what you mean. Yep.
They're getting it from social media, and they don't really look at who's making it and who's doing the reporting. And so all like the real work of journalism is no longer much of a consideration for most consumers of media. And so I don't know what the solution is to that, except when Hearst called me and said, hey, we need somebody to do something really radical with Road and Track. And what would it be? And my feeling was, they were doing 10 issues a year that were pretty thin. Mm-hmm. And, they were really reliant on WeatherTech and Dave McNeil, who's a great guy. And they were a very supportive brand. But it was a game of diminishing returns. And so my feeling was that Road and Track, with its cachet and everything that Peter Egan had done with it, and Larry Webster back in the day, and all of the going back to Bond, all the guys who had sort of built it up, it has a lot of cachet, and it has a lot of authority with a real enthusiast. And so my pitch to them was, let's stop pretending to be 600,000 readers a year of sort of less interested enthusiasts, and let's focus on super enthusiasts, people who are really into storytelling about cars and who buy cars and who collect cars and are interested in bidding and auctions. And we sort of, Eddie Alterman, who was at he was formerly at Car and Driver. He's a good friend of mine, and he's now the editorial director at Hearst Autos. But at the time, he was just kind of, in between things at Hearst, and he and I were like, let's call them super enthusiasts.
Yeah.
And let's focus, let's trim it down to 150,000 of them. And let's cater to people who are really going to put their money where their mouth is and who care about where these stories are coming from. They're not interested in car chases. They're not interested in clickbait. They're interested in the true stories of the car world. And let's make it beautiful. And let's really dig into old school storytelling and reporting. And let's make a coffee table book. Let's turn it into art the way that great journalism and great storytelling should be. It should be beautiful photos. I mean, cars are the most charismatic product on the planet. I challenge you to find maybe airplanes, maybe the Apollo program. Maybe that's a more charismatic product. But from a maybe guitars or watch, there's a lot of overlap, obviously, between people who are interested in those and people interested in cars. But let's lean into the fact that these are charismatic, beautiful, complicated in all the best ways machines. And maybe there aren't millions and millions of people who are interested in that level of coverage, but I'm willing to bet and place my career on it and the existence of Road and Track that there's plenty of them and more than enough to, if we focused on them and focused in a more concerted way on the niche, then we would find success there. So what we did was we shut the old magazine down, where we relaunched it as a coffee table book, as as an object of art with real storytelling. It's 170, 180 pages long, and we put better paper stock, and we'll lose money for a year, and then we're going to make money because like great products want to advertise and beautiful things. And then we've launched the Track Club. We've got this experiences program that we're really excited about that has been really successful, which is hosting rallies that are high-end 5-star rallies that include track days and great personalities. Graham Rahal did a track day with us. Jim Hinchcliffe did a track day with us. Nice. We've got Randy Lanier, who's fresh out of prison and has got a book coming out, and was himself a great race car driver who made some bad decisions in his life, but he's going to be doing our next rally with us. And that's in 2 weeks, actually, here in the Hudson Valley. So, we decided to remake this as a car magazine that is really interested in the super enthusiast.
To me, it seems like the right track to go. I have to ask the question about demographics, because a lot of this has to play on that. I'm a boomer, as my kids call me. I smile when they say it. They laugh when they say it. However, boomers are aging out, getting tired, and maybe, we're not going to be around for the long haul. And I hear this from Concours folks and guests I've had. We got to bring young people into this. I believe there's plenty of young people that love cars still. They're out there. I'm seeing more and more of them at major Concours events, Car Week, Pebble Beach. This year I saw more young people and I've been going 33 years, than I've ever seen. I said to my friend, who's my age, a little older, and I said, you notice how many younger people are here this time? This is interesting. So your demographics, have you seen them with the change you've made? It's a very long-winded question. Evolve into bringing in younger people? Yeah.
We're getting younger. Ironically, the magazine before we changed it had been aging out. It was not only aging out, but the household incomes were going down. We discovered, listen, what we're doing is it's holistic. We've got this magazine that is basically the Halo product, and that's going to inform the website, which is also going to inform the experiences. And these three things together are what form the brand. With the rallies, our experiences, we've got a rally in Hudson Valley and Sonoma. We just did 9 days in Italy that ended up at the Italian Grand Prix.
Nice.
We've got a whole bunch of them. I've been really surprised between the 40 and 60 guests that we bring to these. It's a really expensive trip, and we've got I don't know, half the people are under 60, and probably a quarter of the people are under 40.
Okay.
So the people who are returning are all the younger ones. I've been really impressed by that. Cars, everybody's been saying that Gen Z and millennials aren't interested in cars. They're all moving to the cities. I just think that's not true.
COVID changed that.
It definitely did. And I also think that people who love aesthetics and people who love beautiful things and people who love like really cool machines are also young people. They're boomers and they're young people. I think the relationship may be a little bit different. Certainly if you grew up, if you're in your 30s, you're probably more of a JDM guy than you are a Mustang guy, maybe. I don't know. But our demographic it's still a little older than I want it to be, but we're moving it younger. I also think that naturally the car buyers are younger. The old people are being replaced by the young people.
As it always is, and they're making money now, right? The millennials and those folks, they're now in a position where they've got some discretionary money, or they can finally buy. And that's why I watch, Bring a Trailer all the time. And I just sold my first car I ever sold on Bring a Trailer, which was a collector car I'd had for years. I'm really happy because it broke a record that still stands for that kind of car on Bring a Trailer. But I watch Bring a Trailer and I kind of look at prices coming up. I have a 17-year-old E46 M3 I bought new. And those cars are now selling for what I paid for that car new, if they're nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you never think as a regular production car, where they made a lot of them, it's not like limited production or anything, would ever sell for what you bought it for, but they are. I saw one sell for $79,000 this week. And I went, what? Holy cow. So those times they are a-changing.
They are. The auction market, the collector market's completely out of hand right now.
Yeah, it's out of control.
I don't know if they'll find planet Earth again. I think they eventually will, but now's a great time to be selling an E46.
Yeah,
You know?
I like, well, I got to replace it with something. And now's not a good time to buy anything, that's for sure. But like I
No.
said, I think I lucked out and sold my Turbine, a 930 Turbo that was very rare in its color, and sold it right at the right time, I think, because now I'm starting to see things wane. I didn't really plan it that way, but it had just become too precious. I wasn't driving it as much because it's like, oh, this thing is worth so much and it's original. But anyway, that's beside the point because my listeners have heard that story. I'm going to take a break here. We come back. I want to talk a little bit about challenges because what you guys are, and we've talked about this, magazines are dealing with is challenge and change. And change is always a challenge. So keep that thought in mind and we'll be right back.
Okay.
You've heard me talk about Linkage Magazine here on Cars Yeah for a couple of years now. Well, they're growing. And in 2023, they're going to grow from 4 issues a year to 6. And there's an opportunity here for you to take advantage of this growth. If you go to linkagemag.com and click on the renew button, if you already subscribe, you can get a great deal. Use the code RENEW6 for 1 year and you'll get 6 issues for the price of 4, or type in Renew 12 for 2 years, where you also have a great savings. Plus, they'll even throw in a free Linkage hat. How cool is that? The publisher of Linkage is Donald Osborne. He's been a guest multiple times here on Cars Yeah. He's become a good friend of mine, and I'll tell you, Linkage Magazine is one of those newer magazines that you're going to want to get. It's all about experiences, opinions, and values. It's a wonderful publication, something I look forward to getting. And now that I'm going to be getting 6 a year, even more special. So go to linkagemag.com. Again, use the code RENEW6 or RENEW12 to get that special deal. Do it before December 31st, 2022, so that in 2023, you'll get 6 issues of Linkage Magazine instead of 4. If you're listening to this program, there's a pretty good chance you believe what I believe, that the collector vehicles we love are more than just a means of getting from one place to the other. They're a part of our culture, our identity, and as a people, they bring us together at vintage races, classic car auctions, and 1,000-mile rallies. That's why I support the RPM Foundation, which exists to ensure that the critical skills necessary to preserve and restore these important vehicles aren't lost to time. RPM stands for Restoration, Preservation, and Mentorship, and their goal is to inspire the next generation of vehicle restoration professionals through its outreach programs. And they include Shop Hop, Off to the Races, the RPM Future Class, and many others. These programs engage talented young people across the country and connect them with mentors and a variety of opportunities in the industry. For more information on how the RPM Foundation is driving the future of collector vehicles skilled trade, visit rpm.foundation today. So I always ask my guests what I call about the challenge question, and that is a big challenge they faced. No doubt in your career in journalism, you've seen massive change and a need to change. Otherwise, you die if you just keep being the same. So as this change is occurring, what have been the biggest challenges for you guys in this transition?
At Road and Track?
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of angles, and it's all really challenging. But taking a magazine that's been around for so long and has evolved slowly over the years, it's there's the ampersand was put in, then the ampersand was redesigned, but at the core of the magazine had always been a monthly built around columnists, Peter Egan. We had Sam Posey. We still use Sam. And
oh, really? He still I had him on my show earlier this year, actually, he and his son. And we know he's got some huge challenges with his physical conditions. But
sure.
Sam, what a legend.
Whenever we go to Lime Rock, Sam comes.
Awesome.
And he paints a lot now. He spends a lot of time in his studio, and we did a profile of his studio and a handmade issue,
therapy,
one of our handmade issues. Yeah, and Sam's all there. He's got some physical issues, but he's all there, and he's one of my favorite guys, and he's super generous. But the challenges have been taking a magazine sort of built around some personalities, and more recently it was Camisa and Sam Smith. who had sort of taken on that role. But when I tossed out the 10 a year model, I had to really rethink what is going to be inside this magazine. Are we going to keep building it around personalities or not? And one of the challenges has been taking a model, that had been around for 75 years and actually holding on to the brand, but changing everything else about it. And while also holding on to the readers that we want and putting out a great magazine. It's like trying to sew a new body onto the same head, or a different head onto a new body. It's like it's a Frankenstein, but it also has to be a coherent product that stands on its own, and not just coherent, but in my mind, because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, it has to be excellent, and so that's like navigating these things was really difficult. And in those first couple issues, we relaunched the magazine at the start of the pandemic. And so I had inherited the staff for the most part. I brought in a couple of guys. I brought in AJ Bain,
cool.
who wrote he wrote Go Like Hell,
and a lot of great books.
A lot of great books, but I've worked with him since Rolling Stone. I've been working with him for 25 years, and we've been really close for a long time. I brought him to the Drive, and so I brought him in, but we were all remote. We were all trying to figure out what Zoom was, and also put together this brand new magazine. And that was everybody had their challenges with COVID, and I don't want to say that mine were special at all, but it was going to be hard to start with. Maybe it made it easier. I don't know, but that was a big challenge. Another one is always trying to figure out the internet. What matters on the internet, and what role does really great content play on the internet? You find out everything from Google, and there's a level of, we want to do a specs page for cars, but I kind of always think, does this pass the, just Google it test? Just Google it. If you could just Google something, then you can't compete with that.
No, not at all. In fact, it's like ask your phone and it tells you stuff. Ask your Alexa, it tells you stuff. It's a weird, different new world. But I hear you saying basically having to reinvent yourself, and that's a tough thing to do at 75 plus years old.
It's hard. It's hard. And I think the only way to do it is to make the thing that you're doing be really good and to be kind of striking. And we have to use the cachet that we have and the authority we have to, remain authoritative, but also expand our footprint in some other way. Our most recent issue is a motorsports issue. And we put Sebastian Vettel on the cover, and we got really great access to Sebastian, and wrote sort of his defining valedictory to the sport. Mm-hmm. I think the issue itself is the best issue of Road and Track that's ever been made. And I wouldn't have said that about previous Road and Tracks that I've put out, but this one it's a A to Z of motorsports. It's a striking piece of magazine making. Dan Pun, the executive editor, and Nate Schroeder, who's our creative director, they just went all out, the whole staff. It was just fantastic. So I think that the difficulty is can you still be good and be relevant in today's world, and how do you do that? And I don't know if we've fully succeeded. I mean, we're profitable,
Well, it seems to me you're on a good track, and looking at the most recent issue, bravo to your whole team for what you guys did there. And it's a tough thing. I mean, reinvention is a very, very, very challenging thing in a world that is changing minute by second by nanosecond, and trying to figure out what people want. So again, keep pounding away, as they say when you're marching through hell. Keep marching. I want to talk about you a bit and your passion for cars, and we're going to start with a special vehicle in your life that really stands out. What is that ride?
Wow. I gotta say, I grew up, my dad was a lobster fisherman, and we had a lot of trucks growing up and a lot of beater cars. And my brothers and we lived next to a mechanic who would give us broken old cars, and we would fix them up. And when I was 10 years old, we were racing Corollas and we had at one point had to sell like a GT, but we had set up a rally course in the back part of our property, about 25 acres. And I was 10, 11 years old, and my older brother was 14, and we had a couple of other people, and my parents never found out about it, but we raced the crap out of
wait a minute.
cars.
You're racing in the backyard, and where were your parents? I guess they're off fishing in the ocean. So,
The property had a ridge line, and the backside of the ridge line, nobody ever
went back there. Yeah. What are the boys doing today?
Every once in a while, they eventually found out, because I rolled a Corolla once when I was 12 and broke an arm, and I had to explain the broken arm. We had various issues, various injuries that we could explain away, but they eventually found out when I did roll that car and break my arm. And we had, I had a Yamaha YZ80 and a 125. I did a lot of motocross racing, and but the car that really set my brain in motion as a car guy was my uncle. My uncle Bill came back from Vietnam in '69, and he bought a 911E, a 1970 911E new.
Wow.
And he held on to that thing for a long time. So when I was 17 or 18 years old, he brought me out for a drive in it and let me drive the thing. And it's the 2.2. It's I don't know, 140, 130 horsepower. But that experience, like, this is in New Hampshire. You're just doing back roads in New Hampshire. And I had been driving beaters, 3 on the tree GMCs and, Toyota Celica manuals. But my first experience in the 911, in his 911, just, it kind of blew my mind. Like, oh, this is what a balance feels like,
Yeah.
And this is what it's like, when you understand how tall a gear can get, and what braking feels. I mean, wasn't not the most robust 911s out there, but anybody who drives a 1970 911 knows that it just has this sort of magical quality that you feel from in your lizard brain, your amygdala. And I had spent enough time in beaters to understand what a difference a 911, it's like a different species. It was like suddenly I was on a whole different planet. Gravity meant something else, and I think that people who have a lot of people, their first experience in a 911 from that era, or even a 912, it just it changes your wiring.
Yeah, I love that 2.2 engine is awesome. Love that
amazing.
thing. Love that thing. Well, since you spoke about the lizard brain, this next question I have for you is going to crawl into that brain. If you were reincarnated, pun intended, as a vehicle, manifest as a vehicle. Now, this isn't what you want to be. This is how you perceive the man in the mirror. What would you be? But more importantly, why?
That's a wild question. I don't know. I definitely wouldn't be a sports car. I wouldn't be a very practical car, but I don't know if I would be a sports car. My first response is Land Rover Defender, but that's too sexy. I'm thinking box truck, maybe a K5 Blazer.
Okay.
It's reliable, but not that reliable. Plenty of extra parts around. Not that good looking. Sort of noisy. Reliable in tough situations, but not. I guess it's a weird thing to say, K5 Blazer now, because if you go and bring a trailer, everybody's paying.
Yeah, they're like Broncos. They're coming. Well, see, you're coming back, Mike. You're back in fashion again. K5
Yeah, right.
Blazer. I drove one of those all the way down to the tip of Baja. Took the ferry across, back up Mexico. Spent a whole month with a neighbor of mine, his mom and her friend, they got two of those from my friend's dad, who was running a Chevy dealership, brand new. And we camped on the beach and drove through Mexico and just had a wonderful time. And so I spent a fair amount of time driving in the heat in a K5 Placer.
With the fan blasting.
Yeah,
Just
hard.
the fan.
Yeah. Air conditioning wasn't working too great, even on a new one. Well, that was a very honest approach to that answer, and that's what I like. I like to ask my guests about books. I'm all about books here, and since you're a journalist, I'm assuming you're a reader. You mentioned AJ; he's been a guest on the show multiple times. What's a great book that you've read, maybe in the last year, you'd like to share?
God, I can't share Arsenal Democracy then if it's.
You can. I love that book. Yeah, that's one of his cool ones.
It's a great book, and I mean, Go Like Hell is obviously set in motion a whole thing that ended with a movie, and I think is told one of the great stories of all times. But I loved Arsenal Democracy. I got to say, I'm a big engineering nerd, and I read a lot of books about space. Let me just can I share a couple? Do you mind?
That's fine. Yeah, I was also going to mention The Accidental President. I'm not sure if you read that by AJ as well, but
I mean, absolutely,
that's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, AJ and I are pretty close, so he sends me galleys.
Lucky you.
To give reads to, and but two of my favorite journalists are Bill Buford and William Langivisha. And Buford was a New Yorker editor, a New Yorker writer who wrote probably the greatest piece of reporting of all time with this book Among the Thugs, which was he embedded himself with the fans of Manchester United in the late 70s as they were in the process of being banned from every stadium. And it's one of the most harrowing and honest pieces of journalism. And I think for anybody who wants to be a journalist, it's absolute. It's that up there with Michael Herr's Dispatches, which is one of the great Vietnam books. But it's a striking piece of journalism. Last year, I read a book called Into the Black by Roland White, which is a great dive into the space shuttle program that is I think essential reading for car guys. He really gets into all the engineering difficulties that they were facing, trying to build that strange arrangement of two solid rocket boosters, a giant fuel tank, and this the orbiter outside of all that. It's pretty amazing. And another one is William Langivisha. I think if you're a writer, if you want to be a car writer or a journalist, you should read his stuff and study it, because he's an aviation writer, but he worked at Vanity Fair and The Atlantic for a long time. But he rebuilds sort of forensically these stories that are almost impossible to tell, like massive air disasters. He rebuilt the World Trade Center from the bottom up after the collapse, and talked about how it was, what are the forces of physics and destruction that went into bringing those buildings down, and exactly how it happened. But he's got a book called Fly by Wire, which talks about Jesse Sullenberger landing in the Hudson.
Oh yeah,
and the software that made that possible, and the engineering that went into the Airbus airframe that made that possible. And I think the easy thing would be to talk about books about cars. I really think that like books about engineering that are really great and almost impossible to comprehend how they got the reporting and how they put it together in such a coherent way of storytelling is really important. So Langivisha, Langiwiesche, I think. Okay. He's out there. But Fly by Wire is an amazing book. And if you want to be a writer, let me just, I say this to everybody that works for me and who's ever worked for me, read Stephen King's book on writing, because it is one of the greatest. It's up there. It beats Strunk and White. It's read it every year, and live by it, because the craft of writing is a difficult one, and it's somehow a dying craft. I think that there's an element of that we're losing by blogging, that the great writers will tell you, you got to put lots of time in, and it takes hours, and great writing is great editing. But yeah, those are some of the books
There you go.
that I have on my list.
Some new books added here on the Cars Yeah Guest recommended reading list. So I'm going to enable you to go on the ultimate drive today. Kind of a fun thought here. I'm going to park any car in the world in your garage. You get to go on a drive. And here's the key. You get to take anybody with you, even somebody who's no longer with us, somebody from the past. So yeah, what's the ultimate drive look like for Mike Guy?
God, that's the worst question in the world.
Well, it is not.
It is
not.
The worst question in the world. I did get wind of this question before. So I thought about it a little bit.
Well, good.
I'm a big music fan. I'm a musician, and I'm a real music nerd. And I thought it should be a Lancia Stratos, right?
Okay.
Because that's a car that I really, really want to drive. But you can't really have a passenger in that because you want to talk to the passenger.
Yeah,
you can't
it might be a little loud.
But and one of the easy answers is I would love to go for a long drive with John Lennon, and I would love to do it in a manual, and I would love to teach him how to drive because he was famously a terrible driver. And I think the only time he went on a road trip, he got into a terrible accident and nearly killed himself and Yoko and Julian. And he was driving an Austin Healey, and he rolled it. But really, what it would be is this. I'll tell you. Every year, Keith Richards and Patty Hansen, they don't do it anymore because Keith's getting old, but they go on a road trip in an RV with the Hansen family, Patty and her 2 or 3 brothers. They each have an RV, and Keith drives a rented Winnebago, and Patty's brother, and it's a wagon train of Hansens and Richards. And they go down into, I don't know, they go down to West Virginia, or, they hit the KOAs for a week. And Keith pulls out the guitar, and they sit around the campfire, and they play music. And so it's not going to be the Lancia Stratos. It's not going to be a Carrera GT with Clint Eastwood or whatever. It's going to be a Winnebago with Patty Hansen and Keith Richards. And we're going to drive down the Blue Ridge Parkway, and it's going to end up around a campfire somewhere with Keith playing some music. We talk about Keith's Bentley, and yeah, I think that would probably be it.
Why am I not surprised? I got a very unique answer out of you today. Holy cow! That's got to be a top 10 right there, I think, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I was also like. Do you mind if I just keep talking for a second?
That's fine.
There is a road trip that I would want to do if I could go into a time machine for the ultimate drive. It is this. After the Beatles finished their 1966 tour, it was the last tour of the Beatles before they became a studio band. Mm-hmm. They all dispersed, and Paul McCartney, who was the only driver in the group, he's a guy who loved driving. He went on a road trip. And they, that tour nearly killed them. They were almost beaten to death in the Philippines. They were, John Lennon had said that the Beatles were more popular than Jesus, so all of the American South wanted to kill them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they were all just really just fed up and burned out and bummed out at the end of that tour. And they said they were never going to tour again, and they never did. And so they all took off. And what Paul did was went to France and rented a Citroën DS and drove around the French countryside in a disguise. He slicked his hair back and shaved and wore a fake goatee and spent 3 weeks sitting at cafes in central France in small towns reading the newspaper and not thinking about music, not thinking about music, not being attacked by fans and not being screamed at or threatened by Imelda Marcos. He just went on this road trip, and I one of the things I love about cars, and this really hit home during COVID, was the car is the place where you close the door and you control everything. You control the acceleration, the steering, the to a degree, what it smells like, how warm it is, how cold it is, who's talking, how much you can hear, like what the music is, where you're going, how long you're going to be there. And McCartney did that for 3 weeks and rediscovered himself in a lot of ways. And he's actually barely never talked about this. Some people have written about it and really in broad strokes, but Jan Wenner, who was old friends with Lennon and became close with McCartney only recently, he was my boss at Rolling Stone. He started Rolling Stone. He told me this story, and when McCartney finished that road trip, he flew back to England and sat down with Mal Evans, who was one of the Beatles guys, and said, I think the next album should be not the Beatles. It should be a band that's playing for a guy named Sergeant Pepper. And they're just a house band. And I always think about like this road trip, like what the power of going on a road trip in the right car and just being alone sort of with yourself and being able to decompress. For Paul McCartney, it ended up with arguably the greatest album of all time, or at least the concept of it. And I would like to been a passenger in that car.
No kidding.
Even though Paul probably would have kicked me out. That's the road trip. So the real answer is that road trip. I'm not even there. I'm just a fly on the wall.
Fly on this. Well, better than a fly on the windshield, because we know what happens to those guys. Wow. Well, you took us down another wild road there, Mike. You warned me at the beginning of this, so you were true to your word. You've taken us on a wonderful journey today, and I'd love for you to leave us with maybe some words of meaning, a mantra, success quote, inspiration.
I don't know if I have one of those. I mean, I guess
I don't believe you.
Listen. Philip Roth was one of the greatest American novelists of all times. He wrote 8 hours a day, 7 days a week for his entire life. There's no substitute for hard work. But that's the quote. Since we've already gone down the Beatles path, I mean, there's a John Lennon quote that I think is apropos of media today, although not of Road and Track. I will say that the quote that I love of his is, "Paranoia is just a heightened sense of awareness." And I will say that it's funny and it's real, but it's apropos of success, especially in media today, because you got to be on your toes, man. Like the internet, like one day it's video, the next day you got to have uniques. Another day it's like you got to have a podcast. What we're trying to do at Road and Track is not pivot to every single tiny little thing and sort of stick to some core values and believe in them and have faith that there are people out there that know what good things are and will support them. And I think that we live in weird times, but I have, especially in the car world, you brought this up earlier. I don't know if it was before we started the interview, but like car guys are fascinating and they know real car guys know what good stuff is. And I have a lot of faith that like whatever's going to happen in our world, our niche, there will always be such a thing as good taste. And like there'll always be a market for real enthusiasm, and I think that's a super important thing to remember. And don't go chasing the flavor of the week or flavor of the month.
Well said. How can people learn more and subscribe to Road and Track?
Well, go to roadandtrack.com, of course, and I would say if I would like to pitch the magazine and obviously all the work we do every day on the website. But if you get an opportunity to get a seat at one of our rallies, they're really special. They're really, there are a lot of companies out there that do rallies, but I think that there aren't very many people who can get you on a full day at Sonoma with Graham Wilson. I'm sorry, not Graham Wilson, Graham Rahal. Not a lot of people get you on track with Graham Rahal and in all the 5-star restaurants, and the whole staff of the magazine is there. And, we got Randy Lanier is going to be telling some great stories, and AJ will be there, and Matt Farah, who's one of our staffers who has a competing podcast with Spoken Tire.
Yeah, he's been a guest on the show here. Yep.
Yeah, Matt's on staff with me now, and it's that's what I'd say. Go to the website, come on the rallies. Like really, like I think being being a car enthusiast is about doing stuff, not just reading stuff, although that's a big part of it. We're all about getting out there and doing stuff, and we actually do. So come out there and do it with us.
Sounds like a plan. Want to do a big shout out. Thank you to our mutual friend Nathan Christopher there at Hearst for getting me together with Mike. Nathan, thank you very much. Mike, this has been great fun. Thank you for being so generous today with your time, your expertise, your stories. Wow. I think we could talk for hours, my friend. Until you and I talk again, though, I'll see you down the road.
Thanks a lot, man.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.